For years, we've all heard the rumors, right? That a glass of red wine with dinner might actually be good for you. But is that really the truth? Well, the science behind it is way more complicated than you might think. So today, we're going to uncork all that research and really get to the bottom of it. So it really boils down to this one simple question that has confused so many of us. Is that glass of red wine a genuinely heart-healthy habit? Or is it just another form of alcohol with all the risks that come with it? It's a fascinating debate that puts age-old traditions right up against modern public health. To really understand where this whole idea even started, we have to rewind a bit. We've got to go back to this really puzzling observation that caught the attention of scientists all over the world. And that observation was called the French paradox. Researchers were just stumped. How could an entire country eat tons of cheese, butter, and all sorts of other rich, fatty foods and still have such amazingly healthy hearts? Well, one of the top theories pointed to a staple of the French diet, a moderate, regular glass of red wine. As you can imagine, this paradox kicked off a huge wave of research. So what was the actual evidence they found? What was it that made everyone so optimistic about that daily glass of Merlot or Cabernet? Well, one of the biggest things was that large-scale studies kept finding this really consistent pattern. When they plotted heart disease risk on a graph, it made a sort of J-shape. The risk was lowest for the moderate drinkers, lower than for people who didn't drink at all, and way lower than for heavy drinkers. This powerful visual made a really compelling case for moderation. Okay, so why a red wine? What made it so special? The focus quickly zoomed in on these amazing compounds called polyphenols, and one in particular, resveratrol, became the absolute star of the show. In the lab, these things seemed like superheroes, fighting inflammation, protecting our arteries from damage, and even improving cholesterol. It looked incredible. But, and this is a huge but, here's the crucial tension in this whole story. Red wine isn't just a delivery system for polyphenols, it's also alcohol. And this creates a sort of two-faces dilemma that is right at the heart of the modern debate. And this really shows you that core conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got the polyphenols, acting as these amazing protectors with all their antioxidant benefits. But on the other side, you've got ethanol, the alcohol itself. Sure, it can raise your good cholesterol a bit, but it's also a known cause of multiple cancers and carries really serious risks like liver disease and addiction. It's a constant tug of war. So, how has the story changed over time? Well, as our scientific methods have gotten better and more rigorous, the view on red wine has become, well, a lot more cautious. You see, one of the biggest problems with those early studies is something called confounding factors. Think about it. Are the health benefits coming from the wine? Or is it because people who drink a single glass of wine with dinner also tend to eat better, exercise more, and maybe have less stress? Teasing apart the wine from the lifestyle is incredibly difficult. And even when you do manage to isolate the good stuff in wine, the effects in actual humans can be pretty small. For example, a major analysis found that resveratrol supplements only lowered systolic blood pressure, that's the top number, by an average of about 2.6 points. Now that's a real effect, but it's a very modest one. And here's another key thing to remember. There's a huge gap between lab research and real life. What works wonders in a petri dish or a lab mouse doesn't always translate to people. On top of that, a lot of the human studies used super concentrated doses of resveratrol, way more than you could ever get from drinking wine in moderation. This quote really brings us to the modern scientific consensus. It's from recent, very sophisticated gene network analysis, and even though they found some interesting links between red wine and longevity pathways, the researchers, like pretty much all public health bodies today, are crystal clear. The potential risks of alcohol mean you should never, ever start drinking just for your health. So, after all that, where does this leave us? With all this conflicting evidence, what's the real takeaway? Well, it turns out the answer is pretty clear. Context is absolutely everything. You can really see how the entire scientific journey has shifted. We've gone from that simple, promising story of the J-shaped curve to a much more complex and nuanced reality. The focus now is on a much more cautious view. Any potential benefit is likely to be small, it's highly dependent on the context, and it must always be weighed against the very real harms of alcohol. So here's probably the most reasonable conclusion we can draw. If there is a benefit to red wine, it's not coming from the wine in isolation. It's about that one single glass, enjoyed with a good meal, as a small part of a bigger, healthier pattern, like the Mediterranean diet, which is packed with fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, and combined with an active lifestyle.
The wine isn't the magic bullet, the overall pattern is.
And ultimately, this whole investigation leaves us with a really provocative thought. Perhaps for decades, we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of obsessing over the specific liquid inside the glass, maybe we should have been paying more attention to the food on the plate, the company at the table, and the entire lifestyle that surrounds that one single glass.